Our next speakers are Julian and Lefcovitch. Please come up from North. Helmes from Blackrock, and where is Eleanor Menniti? Thank you, you're our moderator. We're going to talk about portfolio customisation problems, solutions and benefits. Over to you.
Well, good morning everyone. It's great to be with you here at another Advice in Action conference. We're going to spend the next 30 minutes talking about custom managed portfolios or tailored managed portfolios. I look after the managed portfolio product team at North, and we've seen a real surge in demand for custom managed portfolios in recent years. Thank you. We're going to spend a little bit of time thinking about what's driving that demand. What's the problem that custom managed portfolios are seeking to solve? We are going to touch on a new innovative solution that's coming to market later this year. And we're going to spend a bit of time talking about the so what. So what are some of the benefits that custom managed portfolios solve for practices, for licensees and for clients? So I've got Eleanor from Lonsec and Uwe from Blackrock. They're going to be helping us navigate this topic over the next 30 minutes. But I might just kick off, Eleanor, a question for you just around the need. You've spent a fair bit of time working with practices and licensees. Interested in your perspective around the problem or the need for tailored or custom managed portfolio solutions.
Yeah, no, Lonsec's worked with managed accounts for a long time. So we've sort of seen it grow from sort of being an idea to being a really dominant part of the advice industry. And I think it's sort of fair to say that there are currently two types of managed accounts offered in the market today. The first being off the shelf, and the second being fully tailored. And both of them offer very different things. So off the shelf, it's simple, it's outsourced, it's very efficient for a practice to implement. Whereas the fully tailored option, you have more control, you have more flexibility, you can align, you can make it more personalised for the advice practice, if that's the right word to use. And I think the success and the usefulness of those two structures to advice practices has been reflected in how quickly the managed accounts industry has grown. I think the investment trends number is 2017, 24% of advisors were using managed accounts. That had risen to 54% by 2023. But I think the interesting piece is that from 2023 to 2024, the number was the same. So essentially, while the FUM going into managed accounts continues to increase, the percentage of adoption by advisors has plateaued for the first time. And when AMP and Blackrock and Lonsec sort of got together to start thinking about the issue of customised portfolios at scale, we saw a few reasons as to why that may be plateauing. One summarised on the slide here, but just to run through them quickly, tax implications is a huge deal. Like we've had that with Lonsec, with our tailored clients, where you go into an off-the-shelf portfolio, there are different funds than you've been using in your paper models. You have to put all your client money, take them out of one fund and into another and realise capital gains. And for equity funds, given that we've had several years of strong performance, that could be quite impactful for clients. So that can be a real barrier to using an off-the-shelf portfolio. But then when you look at going into a fully tailored portfolio, there is generally a size threshold to be able to do that, like either from the model manager or from the platform's perspective. And some groups just sort of aren't able to meet that. They also may be unwilling or sort of uncertain about setting up their own investment committee, having their own PDS and having to sort of run with that themselves, or that may be not what they want to spend their time doing. But they also, may be also concerned on the tailored side about what is the governance framework supporting what I do. Who's going to be monitoring in real time that the portfolios are still tracking to their performance benchmarks, that they're not taking too much risk, and how can I be comfortable that that's happening and allowing me to focus on talking to my clients and helping them. So when thinking about these things between Lonsec and Blackrock and AMP, our conclusion was that there needs to be sort of a third category that sits between those two existing ones, which we would call tailored portfolios at scale or customised portfolios at scale, which brings together some elements off the shelf, some elements of private label, to kind of solve for those needs.
The scale barrier is an interesting one, and it's interesting because the scale piece is not a you problem. It's not an advisor or licensee problem. It's an us problem. We have found it really challenging to deliver tailored solutions to practices and licensees that don't have a sufficient amount of FUM. And I think technology has a really big part to play here in helping us lower the cost to serve. But the reality is, we've spoken to a number of advice practices. They might have 50 to 150 mil. They want a tailored solution, and there's really valid reasons for that. And Eleanor, you've touched on a couple. But I think one of the key reasons is these guys want a unique investment value proposition. They've probably been running model portfolios for some time, and they want a degree of control. I think that's not for everyone, but it's certainly a need that's there in the market, and I think it's up to us as service providers to look for ways to cater to that need. I've touched on, we touched a little bit just on technology. I think technology does have a big part to play.
Yes, I should have mentioned that. But yes, it is huge because you can't scale without tech. So that's, a key part of the offering. Because, I just think that it's something that it's talked a lot about in the industry, but you need the current technology solutions that are out there, I don't think are exactly meeting the ability for us to launch something that's tailored and scalable. So I think that's, I should have mentioned that earlier, but it's a key element.
Let's talk a little bit about technology, and let's talk a little bit about the solution here. Uwe, you have been working with a tool called Aladdin. I'm not sure if anyone knows what Aladdin is. I'm sure everyone or a lot of people know what Aladdin is. It's a huge piece of the Blackrock puzzle. And a very powerful risk engine. Can you just give us a little bit of an overview around, maybe just a little bit of an overview of what Aladdin is? And I believe you're bringing that tool to the wealth market in Australia. Does it look the same? Is it a bit different? If you could just give us a bit of insight.
No, absolutely. Thanks, Julian, Eleanor. We are very excited about this offering, and you're right, tech or Aladdin plays a massive part in this for this to work. So very excited. We do think it solves a lot of the challenges that we're seeing in this space. So Aladdin, just for those who don't know what it is, it's our end-to-end portfolio management platform that we have at Blackrock. So any sort of mandate, large multi-billion-dollar mandate of funds or model portfolios, they're all managed on this pretty sophisticated platform. So it's a risk platform, portfolio management platform. However, when you talk about managed accounts, a lot of these sophisticated tools can be lost because ultimately a managed account is offered through AMP North, through a platform. But this particular offering, we've managed to bring both of the benefits, so AMP North or the platform's benefits as well as Aladdin's benefits to the wealth market here in Australia. So what it enables us to do is it really enables us to manage portfolios at scale. So whether we manage 10 portfolios or 100 or 1,000, it doesn't really matter. Like we get this scale through this technology. Also, it really scales the compliance and governance process. So we had a couple of sessions earlier. ASIC, there's obviously a much greater focus on performance. So risk oversight is key. I know for a lot of the licensees on our RE, compliance is costly, it takes a long time. So again, we can leverage a lot of our systems to streamline that process and actually make it more efficient. And so another offering or part of this solution is essentially being able to tailor at scale. So what does it mean? In collaboration with AMP and with Lonsec, we've come up with a set of portfolios that we think are sort of the best portfolios. However, then the reality kicks in. An advisor might look at the portfolio and goes, well, this is great, but actually you're 90% there. I've got CGT built up, or I've got my own preferences. I really like manager A and B. So you're nearly there, but I want to sort of make some tweaks. This offering, it actually allows advisors or practices to do that. And so where Aladdin or tech comes in is we can track and do a lot of fancy analysis to ensure that the tailored portfolios more or less behave in line with sort of the top, the anchor portfolio, if you will. And so all within sort of guardrails. And so what that means is you can really just have one PDS at the top level, and then that captures a lot of, all the tailored portfolios underneath it. So obviously there needs to be an iterative process to get to that level, but it really sort of unlocks a lot of scale. So yeah, just to summarize, so really this offering in Aladdin and tech, basically it gives us scale when it comes to portfolio management, it improves the governance and compliance process, and also it really sort of streamlines the client journey.
Maybe just press into that a little bit, Uwe. How are licensees using this technology, or how will they use this technology to help them kind of monitor performance, to help them with their compliance obligations? I think it's a really powerful, story there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we manage, large mandates on Aladdin, for example, there's a lot of compliance rules that need to be fulfilled. Whether it's sort of whatever it says in the PDS, asset allocation ranges, what's your objective? You don't ever want to be outside of those bounds. So we run daily compliance checks really efficiently. Same here. So for all these portfolios, whether it's model portfolio or tailored model portfolio, we run daily checks on our side before it even gets to the platform. So really creates efficiencies there for the licensee. But then also performance testing, for example. So we measure performance on Aladdin as well. We track benchmarks. So Francis made a great point earlier around, well, what is a benchmark? So that can be a whole session on benchmarks. But the industry standard or sort of best practice is you probably want to be measuring it against a composites of SAA benchmark. So we already do that in Aladdin. So every single portfolio that we manage is going to be benchmarked against an SAA benchmark to really see how it's performing. So again, that helps the licensee to, I think it was Leah earlier from ESSIC who mentioned, reasonable efforts to sort of investigate, determine underperformance. We can leverage, again, tech to support the licensee in that endeavor.
We've been speaking to some licensees, and they might have been running paper-based models for some time, and their advisors, they might have 100 or 200 advisors that sit within the licensee, and these advisors are either following the paper-based models directly, or they're loosely following the paper-based models. Really challenging for the licensee to monitor performance, to get some visibility around how the models are being kind of created. Eleanor, I'm just wondering if you can give us some colour around how licensees are going to use this offer in practice.
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess just to build on that background from Uwe, essentially how it works in practice is Blackrock and Lonsec together work with a licensee, so maybe we'll use AMP as an example here, to determine that set of parent portfolio. So that may be using Blackrock's asset allocation in addition to their Aladdin risk management and portfolio management technology, combined with Lonsec's independent manager selection experience and leveraging Lonsec's research by rated universe to come up with that set of parent portfolios with the licensee. So it's not just us, it's being sold to licensee, it's very iterative. That can include setting the asset allocation, all the bands around the asset allocation, portfolio objectives, philosophy, so whether it's index, whether it's active, even sustainable portfolios or retirement portfolios, just really setting that at that head office level and agreeing on the guardrails around those parameters that will go into the PDS. From there, that portfolio gets launched on a platform like North, for example, and can be bought off the shelf by an advice group if they like the offer with the Blackrock and Lonsec's inputs with the comfort of the licensee oversight, with an investment committee backing, populated by the three organisations backing it. That might be enough, and essentially, and that's great, that's possible. But as Uwe mentioned, there may be situations where an advice group may say, look, I like the concept, I like most of it, but they do want to make fund substitutions. And so from there, the conversation would be with Lonsec initially, like we would be sort of the consultant or the portfolio manager working with that particular advice group to say, look, what funds would you like to look at? We can give feedback based on like the rating at the outset, and the licensee or AMP can talk to the APL. But then it would be us working with Blackrock to say, well, if we did execute all these substitutions, is that still within the guardrails that have been set at that parent portfolio level and that's in the PDS? And if it's a yes, then it'll be fine. And if it's a no, it's a sort of an iterative process to go back to the advice group and saying, look, this is what we think. How do you want to proceed from there? So in a way, it's sort of, transforming those off-the-shelf parent portfolios into a tailored portfolio. I guess you'd call them a child portfolio. I don't know if that's the best term for them, but they are, separate. They're separate products. They'd be separate products on the platform. Different to the parent portfolios, but they're still very much tied to the parent portfolios in terms of those risk and return guardrails. So again, it's sort of that element of tailoring and the off-the-shelf scalability, licensee oversight there. And then once the portfolios are launched, it's, there's an investment committee supporting that process. It's not something the advisor has to run. It's a licensee level investment committee. There's still that one PDS. So there's not a separate PDS that needs to be launched. So it is very efficient for the advice group that they have something that's their own, that's been tailored to their needs, but it's still very off the shelf in important elements.
So we've got a parent with some parent portfolios and some children. You touched on the concept of guardrails. Maybe a question for you, Eve. I'm interested in, when we talk about guardrails, what does that actually mean? What are you tracking? What are the guardrails that we're staying within?
Yeah, good question. I like your analogy, parents and children. So we don't have any difficult children. They're all well behaved.
Good.
In case we did have a bad child, slap on the back. No, hopefully that doesn't reflect badly on my parenting skills. I do have 3 kids at home. If they behave badly, what do we do? So we measure tracking error, for example. So how far away have they deviated from the parent? We track that consistently, daily, essentially. And then, again, working with the licensee, at what point sort of do you want to, we use a traffic light, sort of, amber, green, red. So let's say one standard deviation move away from the parent. Are you comfortable with that? Let's start monitoring it. Like, why is it deviating? Is there an underlying manager that's sort of driving that? So there's been let's say, sub-fund substitution. Fund manager A was replaced with B. We initially went through the exercise. Is it rated? Does it have a good rating? Do we have conviction in it? Yes. Does it, from an ex-ante sort of forecasting perspective, does it tick all the boxes? So we've gone through that process. But then, let's say ex-post, you never know how it's actually going to behave in practice. So then you realize, let's say it has underperformed that particular manager. So then we will then work with the licensee, but also with the practice to identify that child and say, look, we either propose downweighting that particular manager or maybe substituting it out. So basically never really getting to the point where you have sustained underperformance. So really hitting an issue early. And that's sort of, again, where tech comes in, where we are monitoring it constantly and are able to respond pretty quickly.
So we talked about the scale barrier. I think having technology that allows you to do governance at scale helps reduce the scale barrier. Execution technology is also really important. We've spent a little bit of time thinking about what that looks like at North. So we've spent some time talking about the need. We've spent a little bit of time talking about what the solution looks like. Eleanor, some of the benefits for practices and licensees?
That's obviously the main point behind having a problem and having a solution to solve it, is that what are the benefits? And I think that, the main one is just trying to get more of the advice industry into managed accounts. I mean, that data seems to be implying that there's keenness to use managed accounts, but the actual implementation and take-up is slowing. And so if there is a third category that we can offer, and that offers managed accounts to a broader range of groups and a broader range of end clients, and that's the ultimate benefit. Maybe just speaking from the consultant or the portfolio manager perspective, our experience at Lonsec is that the tailoring and kind of having that relationship between the advice group and the model manager, whether that be Lonsec or another party, is really important, because you need to have that, even if it's just sort of a sounding board, or just having someone to speak to when markets are if it's COVID or something's happening in market, and saying, look, we need to make a change. Should we make a change? What change should we be making? And once we have agreed to make a change, due to that sort of, having someone you can come to and pose those questions to, the change can be implemented quite quickly. And I think that's a huge value add to end clients, and it's huge, even a psychological value add to advisors as well. And I think also just outside of that, just having sort of that personalised service in a sense of just saying, look, this is what we're thinking, what do you think? Or this is happening in markets, do you have any thoughts on that? Is any action required? Yes or no? It's not so much about executing something every time, it's just having that experience of saying, I know these portfolios are right for my clients because I, have I'm not just taking something off the shelf, it's been built for my clients and my consultant knows what I need and is, serving those needs. But I think reporting is also, and the tech supporting the reporting is a key element of that too. So.
No, absolutely, Eleanor. Agree with all of that. I mean, also just taking even a step back before we talk about the reporting, having three, major organizations sort of partner, that's pretty unique and innovative in itself. So as an advice practice, you get the best of all three worlds. You get the support from an independent research house, taking you along that journey. You then got the benefits of a licensee, platform as well. And then in addition, an asset manager in this space that, we can all bring different things to the table, support the client journey as well. So that's sort of, we think, really unique. But then, from a reporting perspective, all three parties, we've been managing SMAs for a very long time. So it's quite a few things we've learned along the journey, all of us. We've been managing it for, I think, collectively well over 30 years now, 10 years to each on average. And so some of the things we've learned along the way are, for example, that SMAs, yes, it's an investment solution for advice practices, but it's more than that. It's really, at the end of the day, and the previous session was essentially referring to that, it's a business solution. You're partly outsourcing the investment decision-making process. And so because we recognize that servicing advisors and nourishing them with information is crucial. At the end of the day, it's the advisor that's out there talking to the end client. And so reporting, you mentioned reporting. So reporting, we think, is crucial. So we've developed a digital portal that every advisor gets access to. So they can log on. It's a very seamless sort of experience. You get all the performance reports are there. Commentary is there. It gets updated frequently. You can do performance comparison. It lets you create white labeled reports. So as an advice practice, you can upload your own logo, prepared for Mrs. Smith, for your client, and then use that in your review meetings with clients. So really, as part of this offering, we're really trying to sort of empower the advisor, because ultimately it's sort of them that are facing up to the client. So there's a digital portal and a reporting tool as well that's available.
I think having information on hand is just really critical, right? To be able to service clients well when they ask the difficult questions. Speaking of difficult questions, we've got about 5 minutes left. I think, Toby, you've reached your difficult question quota, so I might throw... Any questions, guys?
Hello there. Thank you. Very interesting session. In the context of scale, what's the minimum size of a licensee for this to be viable? Because obviously AMP is a big licensee, but if you're running 10 advisors or 20 advisors, at what point does it become financially viable for the practice or the licensee?
Obviously the licensee input is key to that, but we're seeing around 50 mil minimum, whereas comparing to, say, fully tailored portfolios would be somewhere near 200 mil, again, depending on the consultant and the platform. I don't know if you have any... Yeah,
no, so I think your question was at the licensee level, right? Yeah, so the tailoring starts at, to Eleanor's point, it starts at sort of 30 to 50 million. So, right now the cutoff to sort of go fully bespoke is, depending on the platform, but let's say 200 mil up. So we're now targeting that middle segment. At the licensee level, at this stage we're working with AMP. So it's a good question. Maybe we can take that offline, like which licensee qualifies for this offer. But at the practice level, 30 to 50 million plus.
I was just thinking, obviously it won't come free. So so it's like, from a fee point of view, when is it feasible for a licensee to go, actually, this makes sense?
Well, again, you go first.
I was going to say our licensee rep is unfortunately unwell this week, and they're probably best placed to answer that. Yeah, I think it's very, aligning the licensee to what they're trying to achieve and also comparing to what they're already doing and, what's, the opportunity set as well. So I would just say there's a few different elements there. I just, highlighted the practice limit because that seems to be the biggest constraint rather than the licensee constraint in terms of adopting tailored models.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, this is new to market, but ultimately, this is pretty efficient in the sense that there's scale, at the practice level, there can be scale at the top level. So there's in terms of additional costs, we can keep them like really thin. So for the end client, actually all that benefit flows through. So there's not going to be huge sort of another 5 layers of fees on top of it. So the end client actually loses out. It's the opposite. So here we're actually democratizing managed accounts for the broader market so that advisors can tailor it and really sort of, build the right portfolio for the end client without actually having a significant fee uplift.
This is not a difficult question, but an observation, which is, so the 3 organisations entered in this year's Innovation Awards category, which was pretty, there were some excellent entries this year, and this is one of the finalists. So
I thought we won it, Toby.
Which is why I was so keen to have this session at this conference. Was that a difficult enough question, Julian?
Any other questions, guys?
Okay, I think that's another wrap. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julian and Eleanor, once again.